Okay, so I get a lot of questions from people about how my bullet journaling works. But the key thing with bullet journaling is that everybody has a different style, and what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for everyone else. So with bullet journaling, it's the more ideas you can gather as you develop the way your system works and as your system grows with you, the better off you are. So I just wanted to share, I thought this was the perfect time because I'm about to start a new journal. The one that I'm in will actually end in December. That's not really something I strive for. I don't try to end a bullet journal at the end of a year. It's just kind of convenient that that's how many pages I have left in it, is approximately enough to get me through December. So I've started my January setup and my whole 2021 setup, and I just wanted to go through how this works for me. The first thing is I started with bullet journaling with the Ryder Carroll method from his book, and I started very much with some simple task lists and using just the bullet points that he uses in his book. And I think it's really important to explore that at its simplest measures before you start doing these really creative, colorful things that you're likely to see all over YouTube and Pinterest. That being said, at this point, my bullet journal really is a combination journal slash date book slash scrapbook slash art journal slash to-do lists. It's a little bit of everything, and that's what makes it work for me. The only thing I don't put in this bullet journal is my knitting projects. I have a separate journal just for knitting projects where I track when I start a project, when I finish it, what yarn I'm using, that sort of thing. Everything else in my life goes in here. Oh, I say that. Nope. There's two things I don't put in here. I don't put my knitting in here, and I don't put my household expenses in here. Household expenses are a cooperative thing between me and my spouse, so I keep those in a Google sheet that she and I both have access to. Everything else goes in here. All my work stuff, all my writing stuff, all my art stuff, everything goes in here. So the first page that I open up to in my bullet journal, well, that's just blank. Sometimes I stick little quotes and photos and stuff in there as they come to me throughout the time that I use the journal. But this is the key. And my key is pretty much the same as Ryder Carroll's, except I feel like he uses an exclamation point for scheduled things. Or maybe he uses an exclamation point somewhere. But over the time that I've been bullet journaling, which is about a year and a couple of months now, I have really narrowed it down to these bullets are the ones that I use on my to-do list. So when I go to write a task into any of my lists throughout, it gets a bullet. When the task is completed, I X it out. If I realize I'm not going to be able to do that task today and I move it to tomorrow, it gets a forward arrow. If I'm going to do it on a different day than this week, if it's going to be moved to a further time, it goes back, and I'll show you in a moment why. Scheduled events like meetings and such get a circle. Notes, that's probably the one I use the least often, just because I tend to note on little pieces of scrap paper and then write them in here afterward, but into actual task lists later. But notes go with a line, and then important things get a star. And I make this kind of fun and pretty. Some of these stickers are from the Happy Planner, some are from some scrapbooking things I have, but just whatever I feel like throwing in there. And then January to whenever this journal ends. This is my tarot card page, which I won't do until I actually start using this journal, which won't be for another couple of weeks. But closer to when I actually start using this journal, I'll pull a tarot card and just kind of write some ideas about what that card helps me think of. This is just kind of the way that my bullet journal and my spirituality kind of mesh up. My table of contents, so as I go through and add things into the journal, I will add to this table of contents and put what page numbers those things are on. Helps me keep track of where things are. I especially use this when I need to go back and look at project pages. For instance, I had a page in my old journal specifically for actually I'll show you. I have a page in here for my thesis and my graduate presentation where I've been keeping notes on those projects. And with this, no, they're on page 94. So I can go right to 94 and find all the information on those projects. So that's what I use the table of contents for. I like to kind of give myself things to look back at and make sure I'm staying focused on my work. I just really liked this poem and what she had to say here. It's kind of a theme of my thesis that I just finished up too, so it worked really well. Okay, so this is the future log. This is where we start getting the actual bullet journaling stuff. So this is where, as the weeks of January go on, as events come up that I go, oh, I'm going to need that for February, I'm going to need that in April, whatever, I will add them in here. Then later, when I actually get to those months and I start creating monthly spreads, I will move those tasks from there to the monthly spread. And then this is anything beyond July 2021 will go in this future log. I don't put as much room for this because I don't tend to have things planned that far in advance. By the time I get to July, I'll have my next bullet journal set up. Chances are good this journal will only last me till May or June anyway, because they tend to last me about 5 months. These are my big goals. So in every journal, at the beginning of every year actually, and then sometimes throughout the year if I feel I need to reevaluate, I establish my goals. And I split the page into 4 parts. Sometimes I switch out one of these two for home if we have a lot of home repair projects going, or if we have a lot of big goals that way. But crafting, writing, self-care, work. Crafting and writing are always on there because those are my 2 most important things. And then self-care is something I'm really focused on right now. And then work. And sometime around the time I switch to this journal, I'll fill in some goals I have in regarding that. And I will also go over my last goal sheet and see what I've completed. And this gives me this feeling of being aware of what I've actually done, which is actually way more important than I thought it would be. I felt like during this whole pandemic, I felt like I wasn't accomplishing anything. And when I just started kind of reevaluating this over the last couple of weeks, I realized that actually I've accomplished a lot this year to be really proud of. And this really helps keep me going and keep me encouraged. This is my birthday list. And I like to do these. This is usually like the most colorful page of my bullet journal. But I have a lot of nieces and nephews and I try to send them all birthday cards. So all their birthdays will go in here. And then these are my general to-dos, general things. Somebody suggested a book to me, it'll go there. Somebody suggested a podcast to me, it'll go there. I found a recipe I want to try, it'll go there. Same kind of idea here, but this is for my podcast, Stitch and Witch, videos I want to create for YouTube, things I want to write. Usually I kind of reserve these for fiction pieces, although sometimes I do put some other ideas for essays or whatever in there. And then any other kind of project that comes to mind, things I may want to do around the house, that sort of thing can go there. This page is new for me, this journal, but I've been doing a 10-minute yoga a day routine with Yoga with Cassandra's YouTube page, and she's been doing these affirmations that I've been finding really encouraging and helpful. And I thought if I gave myself 7, then if I find I'm on a rough week, I can just like assign 1 to each day of the week and maybe it'll help me through. And then these are my general chores. If I'm looking at my house going, okay, why do I feel like I'm not keeping up with things? I can just go through the daily list and add them into my to-do list. Having them, sometimes, a lot of times these are things I don't need a reminder in my to-do list to do. But on the occasion when I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed and I need to see it all written out so that I can try to actually accomplish things, I can go through this list and go, okay, what do I need to do? What haven't I done? And just add it right into my to-do list. So this whole beginning section here, all of this, right down to the future log, this whole section is all things that eventually are going to be written elsewhere in the journal, right? So I'm going to, at the beginning of each month, take all those birthdays from that month and put them into that month's calendar. So January, at the beginning of January, I will move them all to this January calendar that I've created. If I'm feeling like in January I might struggle with my housework, I'll go to my chores list and I'll take all these monthly ones and put them into the monthly to-do list, right? And then, like at the beginning of each month, I go to my future log and see what's in that month, and I make sure it's all written in there. And this just helps me kind of organize what I need to do. Having it all written in the future log keeps me from overbooking myself, which I kind of am prone to, so that I can make sure I know exactly what I'm doing. So then the most important part for me is my weekly. Now, this is a particularly artsy weekly for me. This is probably the most creative and artsy weekly I've ever done. Generally, my weeklies look more like that. Like I might do a little washi tape, but a lot of them are like this. They're just to-do lists. But every once in a while, I'm feeling artsy. I feel like I need to draw something. I go through and I do this. Sometimes, depending on how I'm feeling, I change these from week to week. So this week I really felt like I was going to need to be able to focus on the top 3 most important things each day, because I had a feeling based on what I know about myself, particularly what I know about my menstrual cycle, I knew that this was going to be a week I was going to have a really hard time focusing on bigger things, and I was going to need to really break things down. So I gave myself a lot of room for my to-do list, focused 3 items that I definitely need to do at the top of each page, exactly what dinner I'm going to make each evening. My habit trackers, I have a few things I track every week, not necessarily to make sure I do them, but to see if I did them. So like I check off each day whether or not I knit that day, not because I'm required to knit every day, but just because I'm curious if how often I knit. So then I can look back and go, okay, which days did I knit? So the last thing I do with my to-do list is sometimes I highlight them if I'm feeling really overwhelmed. And I choose 3 colors: easy things, important things, and scheduled things. That way when I look at my calendar, for instance, this Friday, I know I have this scheduled time I have to take the cat to the vet Friday morning. We're picking up our new puppy Friday afternoon. As I throw in my other to-dos that day, if there's something that I know is going to interfere with that, I have to move it to a different day, and it's easier to see. And then if I'm looking at this to-do list and I'm going, oh, there's so many things I need to do. Well, these things are a little bit easier, so I'll knock those out first, and then my to-do list seems much more manageable. The last thing I want to talk about is the brain dump. So a brain dump is something that I do quite frequently in my journal. And basically the brain dump is kind of like free writing, but slightly different in that see, this is why I have a table of contents. I'm going to go to my table of contents and see which days or which pages I have brain dumps on. A brain dump, page 56. Okay. So a brain dump is when I take absolutely everything I can think of that I need to do. Everything. Down to do I need to take out the trash? Do I need to add something to my Etsy shop? Do I need to finish up a project? Do I need to write an invoice? Whatever it is, it all goes into a brain dump all at once. And it could be things that I don't need to do for weeks, but it's on my mind anyway. I put it in the brain dump. Then I'll highlight it. First, second, third, next week. I highlight it different ways depending on the brain dump and what's in it. If a lot of what needs to be done is things that don't need to necessarily be done this month, I will give those their own color. So next month, next week, definitely needs to be done today, definitely needs to be done before this weekend, that sort of thing. And I'll color code it. And then I can go through and use my little symbols, my little forward and back symbols, to put them into wherever they actually belong in that week. So that's just a little bit about the way that I bullet journal. Everybody bullet journals their own way. I have always been like an avid planner. I've always had a lot of date books and schedules. I've tried the digital thing. I'm an obsessive to-do list writer. But the bullet journal plan, the way that I do it, works better for me in planning out my life than anything else I have